Hello, this will be a little tutorial for making animations for models in World of Warcraft using the 3.1 M2 version of WBS, which can be found in the WBS Discord, which I will link in the description. But for our example, we will be using a squirrel model. Oi, why did I do that? A squirrel model, which is a very basic model. It has very few animations, and so we will be adding a new one. In order to add a new one at first, so go to this tab right here, Scene, and then under M2 Animations, you will see all the animations. So you can click through them, walk, run, stand, all this sort of stuff. But then, in order to add a new one, we will click on Edit Animations right below this. And then here we will press on plus. This animation it will default to stand, however we will change it to jump start. So let's make a jump animation for the squirrel. And so jump is composed of two animations, jump start and jump end. Jump start is when the character is lifting off, and jump end is when it is landing. And so usually on most models, under normal circumstances, when an animation doesn't exist, when it should play, the model will just default to its stand animation. We don't want that. We want the model to have its own jump animation. So let's make that. And in order to make that, we added this, and now we have to copy a few of these parameters. I am not quite sure what blend time does. I just set it to 150 since that seems like the standard which all the other ones have. And then frequency is in animations with multiple parts, for example, stand. So stand has stand 0, stand 1, and stand 2. And frequency will be how often stand 1 and stand 2 play. So as you know, when the animation is idle and it stands in one place, or the model is idle and stands in one place, it will sometimes have slightly different stand animations. So like for the squirrel, it's, oh, I can't play it right now since I have this open, but it's like sighing and whatnot in other models. So since we don't want it to have any sort of other animations for jumping, we'll just set the frequency to 32767. That seems to be the base for models which don't have other or animations that don't have other parts. So death, combat, wounds, and then stand does. Then run doesn't. And so now that these values are set, we will also activate init blend and primary sequence, and then add 2. For our basic animation, we don't need more than 2 objects, so we will add scene. There's only one scene, and we will add a new action. We'll name it SC_008. Since this is 007, we will name this 008_jump start, or whatever the name of the animation you are doing will be, and then open parentheses 0 close parentheses. And so that is the basic format which all of them follow. And then for our empty slot, we will add the object of the squirrel itself. And our action, we will add a new one, and it will be the exact same thing except without the SC in the beginning, since SC stands for scene from what I understand. And so that will be it here. So we can press OK. Now we have our new jump start animation. Now if we open here and go into animation, we will see that the animation is put here. If we didn't do all these steps and we just created the new animation, it would not be here. So whenever you click off and click back on, it would reset, and so you would not actually be able to create a new animation. We don't want that, since we want it to persist past Blender into the actual game. So now we can go to the animation tab, and we have pose mode here, so that is what allows us to move bones. And now here we have to be really specific. It does not like it when you do something slightly wrong. So if we just add the bones, okay, so first of all, you cannot add multiple. You have to do only one, and rotation is sufficient for that most of the time. There aren't really situations I can think of when you would want to change location or scale. There probably are some. Well, for example, like if you're stretching out to large proportions. I don't know. Think of something. Okay, yeah, anyway. Yeah, so let's add a rotation keyframe, and it added a keyframe. So it's just standing in place now, right? But if we try to export it, it won't export. It will say there are multiple interpolation settings. So how do we solve that? Oh, and yeah, multiple interpolation settings doesn't really tell us much because it says multiple interpolation settings for just about everything, even if it's something else. So how do we solve that? So let's add back our rotation, and we here will set the interpolation to linear. I haven't tried the other ones, but linear works for me just fine. And so there's another detail here. So, you know, there's this first global sequence animation, right? Well, the thing is, global sequence animations play at all times, even while the other animations are playing. So, while the model is walking, the global sequence is playing. While it's running, the global sequence is playing. It's something that always plays. And here, as we can see, it uses ATT handwrite item. And from what I understand, this is a scale keyframe. So here, since we go to jump start, we selected all bones, right? So we will have this ATT handwrite item keyframe as well here. And so here it now has scale and global sequence. Has scale and global sequence, and it has rotation in the jump start. Wait, I'm a little confused. Oh, right, scrolling. Scrolling is really strange in Blender. Yeah, ATT handwrite item. I was just unsure what it was. ATT handwrite item. Yes, okay, so now we have both scale and rotation. As I already explained, we can't have that for World of Warcraft. It will give us an interpolation mode error. Delete keyframe. So let's just delete that one. So it is only affected by the global sequence. We don't need it for this animation. We could figure something out if we did ever need it for some other animation. But usually I have found you don't need them. Even in much more complicated models such as player models, which would also have many more animations and many more bones and all that sort of stuff. But for our purpose, we don't need that. So let's expand our animation to 16. And so how do we want the squirrel to jump? Well, since I don't want to spend all day making an animation, let's just make it spin in a flip. So let's rotate it 90 degrees for 4 keyframes. And for 8 keyframes, we will rotate it a further 90 degrees. And for 12 keyframes, we will rotate it a further 90 degrees. And don't forget to add keyframes, I almost forgot there. And then for 16, we will finally rotate it to this final 90 degrees. And then it sometimes messes with interpolation, so at the end, just select everything and select a single interpolation mode. That should get rid of all problems. And so why did I add them only to 4, 8, 12, and 16? Well, this is another important detail. But for example, if we go into here, we'll be able to see that the World of Warcraft keyframes don't match with a Blender keyframe. So you see how the Blender keyframe is in the middle of 2 World of Warcraft keyframes. We can't really fix that. However, we can if we add keyframes only to even frames, it will still work. So just keep that in mind. You cannot use odd frames, only add to even frames. Alright, so with that out of the way, we have our animation done. So now let's try to import it, or export it rather, to World of Warcraft. WoW M2, patch Y, okay. And now if we export it, no errors, good. Now let's see how it looks in game. Okay, so now we're in game, and we have morphed into a squirrel. It's 4467 if you're doing the same model. And so, let's see how it jumps. It flips. Oh wow, good. So the animation worked. And now The squirrel has a really basic jump animation. It probably wouldn't be good for an actual server since, well, it's kind of goofy, yeah. But it works, and using these same basic principles, it is possible to make much more difficult animations, so more refined jumping animation, an attack animation, a sleep animation, a dance animation, anything. But that is for a later time. This is just for really basic principles of adding animations. Oh, thank you for watching, and I really hope that this helps you. I'm probably not that good of a tutorial maker, but maybe in the future. Bye bye.